Hello, I'm T with Teresa H Creates and welcome to my channel. I wanted to start my next video by showing you how I made this really cute book board album. We'll do a page together, but I wanted to kind of show you the base and how I got started. I went to my local half-price books recently and I picked up a couple of book boards. They were in the clearance section and I was looking for, music sheets, things like that. But I ended up finding these over in the clearance section. It looked like they were probably not because they were damaged or anything, but because they just had an overstock because there were a lot of them. So I picked up the one that I made, and then I picked up and have this extra one here. I just really liked the size of these. And let me go ahead and tell you how big these are so you kind of know roughly what we're working with here. So this is 5.5 by 5 3/4. And then this one was, or is, 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So this one's just slightly bigger than the other one. There's so many options with this. The good thing about this book though is that it already comes with the binding. It's already attached, right? So this is great for those of you who maybe are new and binding terrifies you, or those of you who are not new and binding still terrifies you. So this is already has the binding on it. The binding is intact on these, so I was fortunate there. But had the binding been rough or torn or what have you, not good, I would have just removed it. I would have taken it all the way off and then used maybe a fabric, because these are still attached. They're glued together, the pages are. So I would have used maybe a fabric to go over the binding and hide the spine of it. But I wanted to show you how I got started. Now, all of these pages are very, very glossy. So regardless of what you do with the book, whether you decide to paint the pages or you decide to cover them with paper, I would take some sandpaper over them, regardless of what you do, because you want to give the tape or glue or paint some tooth, something to hold on to on these books. And so I would just take a moment and go through, and you don't have to sand off the entire image. You just want to give it a light sand. And this isn't even a rough sandpaper. This is you see, this is a very high grit sandpaper. What is this one? This is 320. So that is how you're going to want to work on prepping this particular book. And I would recommend, if you're sanding, to use a mask. Another option is, I would do this in addition to what I did with my other one, is that I added a layer of gesso over the book. Let me pull out my gesso. This bottle is almost empty, so I did have to get a new bottle. And I'm trying to use up the last bit of this. I like using the silicone brush just because I don't like having to clean off the foam brushes from the gesso. So it just needs a light layer. If you plan on painting over the base of this, you probably still only need a light layer. If you want to put on layer and layer and layer of gesso so that it is completely opaque and you don't see any of the background, then that's fine. That's up to you. I just put on a thin layer like this. You're going to sand it all down. You'll probably add the gesso at 2 pages at a time, let it dry, and then go on to the next couple of pages. Because otherwise, as the pages start to close, you end up kind of transferring, or they get stuck together with the gesso. So you want to make sure that they kind of dry in between. But we're using super thin layers, or I used a super thin layer of gesso, so it didn't take very long for it to dry at all. Okay, and then you'll notice that I did do a little shaker window on mine. It was super easy to cut the shaker window on this. All you have to do is draw out your square, use a Sharpie or a pencil or what have you, take your box cutter and your straight edge, and then you probably want to put some sort of a cutting mat underneath it. That would be preferable so that you're not slicing through your surface at the bottom. But if you put your straight edge down and then you just cut those lines, it'll pop right out. I didn't have any problems with mine popping right out. It just took a couple of swipes with the box cutter to work through that. And then I had the nice little window. So that's how I'm prepping. And there are so many, as I'm working through this, there are so many ideas that I have for this that I may end up toying around with. To me, when I got it, I had just picked up some Christmas items from a Facebook marketplace purchase, and it was just a little grab bag of Christmas stuff, and it had some great papers in it. And so I thought, you know what, Christmas in July, this is actually perfect timing. It had some nice Tim Holtz stuff, and so that's why I put together the little book I did. I was just sitting here playing around with it, trying to decide what I could do with this little book board, because there were so many of these in that clearance section. I was like, you know what, we've got to be able to repurpose these, right? Some of the thoughts that I had were that you could take maybe a brayer and do some, random painting on it. You could also paint and then purposely press them together so that they get the nice transfer, and then leave them open to dry. You could put your jelly prints down in it. You can cover them with paper. You can use your stamps, whatever. If you do a nice layer of gesso, so there's not that much showing through, you could do your rice paper or your tissue paper, anything like that. And I may toy around with some of those ideas and see how that looks at some point. But let's move on. I'm going to clear this. Let me set this aside. That was just some scrap paper that I peeled off of my mat that I'm working on. So I have decorated my book, but I did leave 2 pages open so that I could show you how I went about doing this. So this is my layer of gesso. This was just one heavy layer of gesso that I did on each of the pages. I wasn't concerned about completely covering up the book image because I was going to use paper, but the sanding gives it some tooth for the gesso to also hold on to, but then the gesso also preps your surface to be able to hold on to your papers, your paints, or whatever. So it's kind of a dual purpose there. Plus, I didn't want these edges showing necessarily. I didn't mind if it had a little bit of a gesso on it and the colors were barely peeking through, but I didn't want them to be like a bright outline. And so that's why I did decide to go ahead and gesso those. And it just so happens that those little papers I got ended up being perfect for this, and I didn't have a lot of extra or waste. And I want to say they might be Tim Holtz, but I'm not 100% sure. I did an image search, but I couldn't find the particular papers. So they may be part of his, I didn't see it in the backdrops, and usually his backdrops have a lot of texture to them. So I don't know if maybe they were in a different kit. If someone recognizes these papers, let me know. A lot of the stuff, like I said, that was in that bag was Tim Holtz, but I don't know that this necessarily is. So, and it wasn't marked, and there were just some various papers. So if you do recognize it, let me know. The large rounded side of my corner rounder actually fits this corner perfectly. So I cut these down to size. Oop, we're going to do it the other way. And round these corners. Now, I don't want to go all the way up to the very edge of this. I'm going to leave just a little bit, like maybe 1/8 of an inch between the paper and the edge, just a very slight amount, because I don't want the paper to get in there and pinch and cause a lot of issues with the closure. Now, what I ended up doing with mine is, because these colors aren't very Christmassy in this book, I ended up using some washi tape to cover up the centers. So let me pull out. This is the washi tape that I used. I believe that this is a Tim Holtz washi. Not 100% sure, but I am going to go ahead and apply some art glitter glue, because I really want the washi to stay. After everything was dry, I went through and applied the washi tape to the centers of this entire book. Let me see if I can get this. There we go. It's having some trouble with the tape here. If you don't tear it slowly, it can give you some trouble. And I just need it to be center-ish. And then I'm going to take my bone folder and just work it into that groove there, that score line. Burnish it down on the edges here, wipe off any excess, and then easy breezy, I'm just going to trim off the excess. I've got strings everywhere, so let me make sure these are out of the way. All right, and then on this side, there we go. Did I get that? There we go. So we've trimmed off the excess. Now, even this thin washi will have an impact on that spine and the way it closes. So that's why you don't want to get your paper up there too closely to the actual score line in the center here. So let me show you the regular book. They close. It closes completely flat. Can you see it? Okay, there. It closes completely flat. But once I added the washi, it is going to add volume and cause this to be an alligator mouth. But that's fine because the purpose of mine was to have it displayed. So it's going to sit and be open. So I don't mind that it's an alligator mouth. I like an alligator mouth book anyway. Also, I did put, you'll notice that this one closes. It's even more stressed on the spine. And it's because I added a pocket here. So then there's just a lot more there to push back. To push back on the page. Let's see. Where is my walnut stain? There it is. I'm going to go ahead and ink up my edges here. I used my walnut stain because it was just what I have on my desk. It's what I've had on my desk for some time now. I used a lot of that tea dye in April when I was working on my Alice in Wonderland. And then after that, I pulled out my walnut stain. And so that's what I've been using since. Maybe I should pull them all out and just have my neutrals up here. I also like a gathered twig. I might pull that out at some point and use it. Okay, and then I'm just using a combination of tape and wet glue. So I'm using, it's just my tape runner, so nothing fancy. Nothing fancy at all. Just gonna get all the corners and then right in the center some. All right, then I'm gonna take my art glitter glue. I'm going to get closer to the edges here, all in the center. This will help too, so that when my tape grabs the page, because the wet glue is on top, it'll give me a little bit of time to wiggle this into position if I need to. So let's make sure this is the right direction. Yes, okay. I turn it to the side and then I match up these little corners here. There's going to be just a tiny bit of space. And then there we go. Then I'm going to take my bone folder and go ahead and burnish this down. Push out any glue that might be on any of those edges. Okay, now let's do the same to the other side. That was such a cute image on the back, but it was just too large for my book, that big Santa, so I didn't use him. There we go. All right. And then again, make sure that it's the right direction. I'm going to line up the rounded edges, the rounded corners here. And burnish it down. Make sure I don't have any glue coming out anywhere. Nope, it's fine. All right. So now as we're going through here, because we don't want these papers to go directly and meet right in the center, because then it would cause a lot of issue with the spine and eventually it would put way too much stress if all those papers met in the center. That's why I added the washi. It's much thinner. I'm still going to have an alligator mouth, so I wasn't concerned with adding the little bit of washi there. And then now I've got a nice little decorative bit in there, so it's all cohesive and comes together, right? Okay, so along with that haul and these pages that I got this sticker book. Like I said, it was just a little Christmas grab bag. So I got this sticker book, and then I also got these frames. And I know these are Tim Holtz frames. This is part of his ideology collection, and I know that they're still available. Still available. So I did go ahead and prep one of the windows. So there were some little cut apart images that were on a few of those pages, and I used those in the frames themselves. I just cut them down and glued them onto the back. I'm going to ink the edge of this frame before I attach it. And what I was doing with these was I was attaching them to the page so that they are actually little tuck spots. So I was attaching just part of it. And they could even be pockets if you wanted them to be. But I liked the idea of having the tuck spots. So let's see, those are on the edge. I don't know if I want to bring him in a little bit closer to center. Or if I want to have, I'm going to bring him in a little bit closer to center. And that'll be fine. So this is going to be my tuck part. I'm going to glue here and then down the bottom. But because this is stitched and it's kind of rough, I don't want anything that anything I'm putting into those pockets to catch. So I learned this tip and I've been using it lately, and it makes so much sense. And I can't remember who I heard this from. It's another crafter who got it from another crafter. And I was in here playing around, and I've been using this for a little bit too. I'd love to give credit. If anyone remembers, let me know. I may come across the video again. But it might have been Julia over at Camellia Crafts Designs. Julie? I don't know. But if you add a little bit of washi there to cover that, everything kind of slides a little bit more smoothly. So I'm going to add to the top. Put some washi here. Put some glue over the washi so that the washi sticks to the washi. All right, and I'm just going to trim it up. All right. And it didn't have to be Christmas washi. I didn't have very much of this left, so that's why I went ahead and used it, because I don't know what else I'm going to use it on. I can't use it on any big projects because, like I said, it's almost gone. But there we go. So when I tuck, it's not going to catch. It'll be a lot smoother that way. Plus, it's not going to end up scraping anything because this thread is actually kind of stiff. So let's bring our book back down. I'm going to add glue to the bottom and to the side here. I'm going to come in a little bit. They've got these little nice strings on them that have come down, and I didn't cut them before I added these on here because I thought I'm going to go ahead and let them dangle out of the book, and I'll see if I like them or not. I can always go back and trim the strings later, but right now I've just kind of left them. Okay, now let's go back to our book and look for something to decorate this. This already has, it's the best time of the year, so it's already got a sentiment on it, but let's see. Maybe we can add something across there though. There's a lot of red, so maybe I want to add a pop of green. Hello, December. We wish you a Merry Christmas. I want something that specifically, maybe we do a wonderful Christmas time. What do we think if we do this right off the center here? Or we do it low, or we can do it high. Because my thought is, if I left it open, you could do anything you wanted with it, right? I like it as just a decorative piece. But you could also, instead of adding pockets, just leave these pages blank, and you can actually make it an album where you add pictures. Mine's just a little decorative piece. So if I wanted to add a picture, I could always put this up here, but I'm not really concerned about a picture, so I'm going to put this right down in the center. Just kind of break up that red a little bit. I don't trust sticker glue, so I'm going to put a little bit of my art glitter glue on the bottom. But this would be a great piece for collecting pictures, and you still can. I mean, this wouldn't be terrible. Someone could still come in and put a picture over this. This is very, very thin little sticker. So if you wanted to come in and pop a photo over this, that would be totally fine. So there we go. And then this one already has, maybe I'll put something down here. Let's look and see. joyful. Dear Santa, not humbug. Let's do Silent Night, Holy Night. This is small, but let's do that. I'm still going to ink up these edges though on this. And in the process, I'm going to ink up the rest of my fingers because it's so tiny. Let me get my reverse tweezers because I'm going to add a bit of glue. I didn't have enough of the full-size pages to cover each page in this book because I don't know if there just weren't that many in the collection or if the person that I purchased this grab bag from had used some and so there just weren't that many, you know, left or remaining. So I ended up using some of the little bits that I had to collage some of these pages. So let's go back to the beginning and we'll add the tags that I made to decorate this book. So here are some tags, and I have a craft along video coming up. So if you want to learn how I made these tags, the craft along video that's coming out in the next few days, that'll explain how these tags were made. But these are the tags that I am going to insert into this. These came this short. This is exact. I didn't cut them down or anything. I did round the corners because that's what I do, but I didn't cut them down. So they fit in this perfectly. They're perfect for this size book. So I've got my little window. I've got these little red and green Christmas trees in here, my little shaker, and then it pops down and you can see Santa's face through the window from the other side. I did use some of the extra pieces to collage the outside. I put a little banner across here. May your hearts be joyous. I added a Merry Christmas, and then I added this cute little poinsettia. I have this little bucket of poinsettias, so I did add that. So let's open it up. Here is a from and to, so I thought you could go ahead and name it. I collaged the inside of this one as well with some of the pieces. This was a beautiful piece of paper that was in that collection, so I added it. And then May Your Days Be Merry and Bright. And then Jingle Bells. This was, again, I didn't have a full sheet of paper, so I kind of split it up, but it says Merry and Bright there. And then we have Dear Santa Claus here. This is our first window. And this looks collaged, but it's not. It was the actual paper. It came like that. So that was nice. And that's what gave me the idea to collage those other pages so that I could really maximize what was going on. Let's pick one. I like this guy. So I am going to tuck this. See, they're perfect right there. This is the one that we just did. So let's choose one for that. Best time of the year. What all do we have? I'm going to add the Noel, but I'm going to add it this direction so that it's poking out. Then I have a pocket here. I could add the Christmas tree one, but then it would be Christmas tree and Christmas tree, so I'm not going to. Let's do this guy. So I've got a bit of the green. And then over here, I'm going to tuck that. So I have that green poking through. Here's a pocket that I added. So I had a tuck and a pocket. Let's add this green. So this is the Christmas tree one, but let's add another one to this. So I'm going to do this little Merry Christmas here. So we've got two in that one. Okay, and then this is, yep, that's a side pocket. So let's add this little guy here. And then we'll do Merry and Bright here. And then we'll also do Peace on Earth. So we've got this little guy, he's extra. Let's go ahead and pop him in here. I think it's perfect. So let's do a quick flip through all the way. So here is my Santa with the little shaker bits. And this was just these frames. What I did was I cut down some acetate and I glued it to the back of the frames. Then I added glue and tape around the edge Did I add tape? I did not add tape. I added glue around the edges of this because I didn't want these to get stuck on the tape. So then I added glue around the edge of the book and then put the frame on it. But whatever way you do it, you have to make sure that you match up. And I didn't know when I cut this out that I was going to use these frames. It was just kind of a happy coincidence. So I actually cut the window larger than I needed for these frames. And so you can see a little bit inside, but you'd have to tilt the book and look for it, and I don't think most people will do that, so not a big deal. So just a quick flip through. Isn't it adorable? It is so cute, and like I said, perfect for little memories, collecting all your little tickets or whatever, things that you do during Christmas time with the family, or you can just add pictures and decorate the pages, and it doesn't matter if it closes flat or not because it's a nice display book. I did add washi to the spine, so that kind of tied it all together, and then I collaged the back. There's one thing that I need to mention about the back of this. So the front page is completely flat. It does not bend, but the back page does. It has a score line right here. And so what I should have done was brought the washi down past that score line and then done the paper. But I didn't realize that score line was there until later. So when you open it, you see how it's bending? It put a lot of stress on this paper, so I had to go back with glue over and over again and really hold this down to keep it from popping up. I can't guarantee that over time with some use, it's not going to pop up or separate again. So I do want to make you aware of that. And maybe this guy might make it a little more obvious. So see, the page is flat here, so it folds right here at the score line, but here we've got this score line, and that's what I'm talking about. So if you bring your washi all the way down to here and then bring the paper up to where it just abuts that score line but doesn't go over it, then it'll be a lot easier to work with. See? So just a few tips, but anyway, I hope that maybe you're inspired to try something a little bit different. This was super cute. It came together so quickly, very, very quickly. So now I've just got to figure out what I'm going to do with this guy and how I'm going to decorate this. So I need to finish working on that. But I hope that you liked this project. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments section and I'll be sure to respond. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, bye.